Good evening, everyone, and thank you for participating in the Calico Basin Draft Recreation Management Plan and Environmental Assessment public meeting. My name is Josh Travers. I'm the Assistant Field Manager for the Red Rock Canyon and Slode Field Office, and I will be your lead presenter tonight. Teresa, can you take us to the next slide, please? For this meeting, I'll spend a few minutes on introductions. I'll provide a 25-minute presentation over the project. We'll provide an opportunity for everyone participating to ask questions where we'll provide answers. And we'll spend the last hour of this meeting collecting public comments. There's many ways to comment on this project, and tonight is one of those, and we'll discuss the other ways as we move forward. Next slide, please. There has been many people involved in the process to getting us to where we're at tonight. I want to thank all of those people. But most importantly, that there's a number of folks involved in tonight's meeting behind the scenes and who you'll hear from tonight, making this meeting successful. My co-facilitators for the presentation will be William Penner and Teresa Ansel. And on our interdisciplinary team and other participants behind the scenes, we have the field manager for the Red Rock Canyon and Sloan Field Office, Katrina Williams, and Shedra Rakestraw, Shelby Johnson, John Aslan, Boris Poff, Kate Sorum, Peter Gower, Noel Crawley, Joe Kotecki, Joni Guerrero, John Prescott, and Aaron Sullivan. It takes a lot of people to make these meetings happen and for us to be able to respond to you appropriately. I just want to thank this team. They've done an incredible effort getting us prepared and ready for tonight, and we'll continue as we make this meeting successful. Next slide, please. For the presentation, I will provide an introduction to Red Rock Canyon in the Calico Basin area, why we chose the Recreation Area Management Plan as the main document that provides the management direction for the Calico Basin area. I'll talk about the process that led us up to where we're at today, and then where we go from here. And then I'll provide an overview of the Calico Basin Recreation Area Management Plan. It's really important to understand that the goals and objectives for tonight's meeting is to give you a general idea of the Recreation Area Management Plan itself, how to navigate it, how we organized it. We want to encourage everyone outside of this meeting to use the resources that we've developed. We have an amazing website that provides an incredible amount of information that we'll share with you throughout this presentation on where to find that website. But we also encourage you to dive into the document itself and really pull out the details of the management direction. For those of you that have already done that, there's an opportunity to provide comments, and based off the presentation tonight, you can make comments off of that. But again, we want to encourage that you dive into that document that may help articulate more comments that you may want to make throughout the open commenting period. Next slide, please. So this is a map of the project area. To the north, it starts in the Brownstone Canyon area, works its way down south through the La Madre Mountain Wilderness, and then southeast towards the borders of Howard Hughes Summerlin property, meeting the northern area of State Route 159. The hatched areas on this map show a heavy emphasis climbing and bouldering areas. In the white, we've got the community of Calico Basin and then the Howard Hughes property. And for the trail markings in green, we have designated trails within the Calico Basin area. And the blue is an inventory of unauthorized routes that have been created through the use of visitors to Red Rock Canyon that have not been designated through any form of official process. Next slide, please. So we want to present to you why we chose the recreation area management as a tool. But I'm gonna back us up real quick and take us to 1990, where Congress designated us as a national conservation area. The national conservation area is one of multiple types of designations that the BLM manages that falls within the National Lands Conservation System. At the time of our designation, Congress gave us two main priorities. Our highest priority is to manage the natural and cultural resources, or I'm sorry, to protect the natural and cultural resources within the National Conservation Area as our highest priority. Secondary to protection of the natural and cultural resources is to manage recreation in a sustainable way that ensures that we can have recreation within the National Conservation Area, but in a way to where we can ensure that we are protecting the natural and cultural resources within the National Conservation Area. Prior to 2016, Red Rock Canyon saw just under 2 million visitors. Sorry, prior to 2016, Red Rock Canyon saw approximately 2 million visitors. By 2019, Red Rock was at 3.5 million visitors. Between 2020 and 2021, Red Rock Canyon has plateaued where we've retained 3.5 million visitors. COVID has played a big role in that. International traffic has been very low in Las Vegas and within, and it shows within our visitation numbers. However, this last year, we have seen a steady increase where we're still projecting to see 4 million visitors by the end of 2022 and 5 million visitors by 2024. Calico Basin alone in 2019 saw 700,000 people visiting the area. That's a 340% increase more than our visitation in 2003. Since 2016, Calico Basin has seen 20 to 25% increase year over year. Therefore, a recreation area management plan specific to the Calico Basin is very much needed so that we can provide a long-term vision, and the BLM will commit for improved day use recreational activities that's focused specifically on climbing, hiking, horseback riding, and scenic viewing. This recreation area management plan will provide management direction for recreation and address the increasing public demand. Next slide. So we chose the recreation area management plan as a step down from our resource management plan. So at the designation of the National Conservation Area, Red Rock Canyon developed a resource management plan. That plan provides an umbrella direction to how Red Rock Canyon and the BLM will manage the 201,000 acres of public land and provides a very high level direction for doing that. The plan allows us to take step down approaches, and we're doing that through a tool that we refer to as a recreation area management plan. This plan is a step down approach that is looking at a site specifically, the Calico Basin area, and it's providing on the ground direction for how we're going to manage recreation within the specific area of Calico Basin. At implementation, we will then implement projects and management practices, some or which are already covered in an environmental assessment that's included in this management plan, but many projects may require additional analysis so that we can really understand the impacts when we go to develop things such as infrastructure or things that may lead to additional impacts within the recreation area. Also, at the implementation of this plan, we will deliver on monitoring and what we call adaptive management practices. Through monitoring, we will tie resources to continuously look at our management direction that we provide in the Calico Basin area and the resources, maybe the impacts, the demand and the increase in recreation visitation, and we will make adaptive management changes appropriate to that monitoring. Adaptive management allows us to, in some cases where we need to tighten up our management direction and squeeze in, and in some cases it could allow us just to squeeze out or relieve some of the management practices that we put in place. Next slide, please. The process for this recreation area management plan started almost a year ago, where we opened up a 30-day information gathering period, and we invited the public to participate in providing us as much feedback as they could in what they would like to see in the management of the planning area. We took that information and working with resource specialists, other stakeholders, other partners, we developed a draft recreation area management plan and an environmental analysis. And that brings us to where we're at today, where we're presenting that plan. We've opened up a public comment and we're asking for feedback on the draft that's been created. From here, we will take the comments, finalize the recreation area management plan and the environmental assessment, and move to signing a decision document that seals this plan into place, where we will directly go into ramp implementation. Next slide. So based on input from BLM specialists, stakeholders, and the public, the BLM identified three main themes, which are analyzed in the recreation area management plan and the environmental assessment. And we've put those into three buckets. The first is the recreational uses that occur in the Calico Basin area, the expectation for recreational experiences and what those experiences are, and the setting in which the recreational uses and experiences happen in the settings that we can manage up to. The second bucket addresses fees, administration, and infrastructure. In 2018, the BLM signed a business plan that included that brought Calico Basin into our fee program. That decision was made in 2018. And it was a decision that we presented to the public 3 times in 2017 that led us to that final decision. And then in that second bucket, we also concentrated on administration and infrastructure. The third, and again, the National Conservation Area's highest priority is looking at impacts on our natural and cultural resources. Next slide. So the recreation area management plan begins with some established guiding principles, and those principles are based around resource protection, our highest priority for the entire national conservation area, recreation opportunities that can occur within the Calico Basin area, and economic sustainability. We then go into recreation area management plan goals, where we concentrate on the recreation uses, fees, administration, and the infrastructure that we're going to provide to assist us in the management of and the demand for recreation that occurs in the area. And then we go into our strategies and the decisions that we make, all revolving around safety, climbing and bouldering, trails, education, commercial permits, fee management, roads, parking, facilities, and infrastructure. Next slide. So the recreation area management plan goals, strategies, and decisions are in two general themes. It's recreation uses, experiences, and settings, where we concentrate on visitor safety, general uses, rock climbing, wilderness, trail uses, access, partnerships, education, interpretation, commercial permits, and film and photography. And then we go into fees, administration, infrastructure that really looks at fee management, facilities, the infrastructure, roads, and parking that support the recreation area. Next slide. So for the proposed management themes, we go into resource protection, and I'll just provide some brief points on each of these. Where resource protection, we're looking at avoiding sensitive resources, restoring degraded areas with native plants to improve wildlife habitat, and provide adequate staffing resources for monitoring and management. For compatible uses, we look at that we're going to continue current management for hiking, climbing, equestrian use, day use. We're going to manage the area as closed to off-highway vehicle use, mountain biking, and target shooting, and camping. And we're going to develop a climbing management plan. So although we recognize that climbing and bouldering is a very important recreation activity that exists in this area, we are going to address climbing in a separate plan that is going to look at climbing across the entire national conservation area through the development of a climbing management plan. And that's being managed through an entire different planning process that we've started this year. For special recreation permits, we will consider the setting when evaluating permit applications. We'll continue current process for issuing permits and film and photography permits. We'll continue to manage to the current level of approved commercial, competitive, and organized group use and film permits. For trails and access, we're going to develop a trail sign plan. We'll develop a trail maintenance plan, and we'll improve existing trail access points. We will look at closing and restoring undesignated trails. And the recreation area management plan does not authorize any new trails. For safety, we're going to prioritize human life over other management actions. We strive for injury-free visits, work with other agencies and residents to ensure public safety and protect resources. And we're going to coordinate law enforcement with our partner, with BLM law enforcement and Las Vegas Metro Police. For the wilderness, we're going to continue to manage the area according to the wilderness management plan that's already established for the La Madre Mountain Wilderness. Wilderness management is a high priority where we manage it to a standard that we call a non-impairment standard, where with a designated wilderness, we're going to manage it to the least human-caused impact possible. And we'll consider trail markings, signs along the Craft Mountain Loop Trail, which is a trail that goes into the wilderness, but we are taking extra steps to ensure the safety of our visitors and the number of people that access the wilderness by looking at a minimal number of signs that we can provide in that area. And last but not least, education, where that will continue to be a high priority, and we'll use education to expand visitor understanding and appreciation of the Calico Basin by providing diverse educational and interpretive opportunities. Next slide, please. We also go into visitation management, where we're considering a timed reservation system. For fee management, looking at a gate system at the entry into Calico Basin that will allow us to have control over visitation that enters at a single time, but also allow us to be successful in the collection of fees. We'll continue to maintain and improve facilities, and the fee program will continue to, we'll use that to better enhance the facilities that we provide in the area so that we can better support the demand of recreation. And then we're looking at the roads and parking in the area to ensure that we can appropriately meet the demand, but that also supports the sustainable recreation in the area. Next slide. A decision that we did make through the planning process, working very closely with Clark County, is the relinquishing of 4 primary access roads into Calico Basin. These roads are Calico Basin Road, Calico Drive, Assisi Canyon Avenue, and Sandstone Drive. But with the relinquishing of these roads, this will allow the BLM to implement a controlled entry system, manage parking, and respond more quickly to changing recreation infrastructure needs. Next slide. For monitoring, I'm excited to share that the BLM over the past year has increased the number of BLM staff that's managing our field program. And we're continuously looking at adding additional resources as funding allows. Through monitoring, we're going to ensure the success of the vision, the objectives, and the goals that this recreation area management plan is established for Calico Basin. And as we continue to monitor, if management practices are not meeting those goals and objectives, we're going to use adaptive management practice to ensure that we change up or down our management practice to ensure that we are meeting the goals and the objectives established. Next slide. This is where we're going to go right into a question and answer session, and I'm going to pass the presentation over to William, my co-presenter, William Penner.
Thanks, Josh. My name is William Penner, as Josh said, and I just wanted to go ahead and frame a little bit of the technical way you can go ahead and ask a question during the next, just about 35 minutes of this meeting. You can go ahead and for Zoom participants, you can click the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. You can type your question in the box that pops up thereafter. You can go ahead and select to send that anonymously. And then the BLM will answer it one of 2 ways. They'll either answer it in Zoom or they'll answer it live. So Josh or someone else will go ahead and provide an answer. And for those participants who are on the phone, it looks like we have 3 folks. If you would actually like to ask a question, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. Then we'll go ahead. I will allow you to unmute yourself. You can ask the question, you'll go on mute, and then the BLM will go ahead and basically provide an answer that way. And further, you can go ahead and get more information at the Calico Basin Ramp EA website, virtualpublicmeeting.com/Calico Basin Ramp-home. And we'll talk about that website at various times along in here, particularly because it'll give some opportunities for how you go ahead and provide comments outside of this meeting. So with that, looks like we got 3 questions coming in. So I will go ahead and turn it back over to the BLM and they can go ahead and start answering some of those questions. Thanks.
Thanks, William. Yeah, and I've got John Prescott, an outdoor recreation planner for the BLM, who's going to select questions, read them out loud, and then I or perhaps another specialist will provide an answer. So, John, you want to go ahead and ask the first, state the first question?
Yeah, so we have a question about mountain biking. The question was, why exclude mountain biking from trail use in the Calico Basin area? And there was a second question similar to that, asking how it was determined that mountain biking was an incompatible use.
Yeah, thanks for that question. So the decision is supporting a decision that was made at the development of our resource management plan, where we've always managed Calico Basin to not allow mountain biking in that area. Mountain biking in so for starters, the Calico Basin planning area is 4,000 acres, and we're getting, and our visitation is reaching numbers up to 1 million visitors. And with that kind of visitation, it becomes very challenging to allow multi-use that includes mountain biking, which requires a large network of trails to support sustainable mountain biking. And so the decision was made to continue the decision that was made at the time that our resource management plan was created. I also want to mention that we are also planning behind this recreation area management plan. We're also working on a Cottonwood Valley recreation area management plan. The public has participated in that. We've heard and know that there's a large interest of mountain biking in that area. We're working. We're going to continue and work closely with the mountain biking community to ensure that the interest exists in these other areas where mountain biking is of high interest. Go ahead, John.
We have a question regarding the potential reservation system. The question is, how will the reservation system work? And will a reservation for the loop work for Calico Basin? Will these be separate reservations? If they're the same reservation, how will that work if you get a reservation for the loop at 9 a.m. but want to enter the Calico Basin at 3 p.m.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So reservations for the scenic drive and a reservation for Calico Basin will be a separate managed reservation. So fees into Calico Basin, if you pay your regular expanded amenity fee to enter Calico Basin, that fee would cover entry into the scenic drive. But if and when we develop we implement a reservation system in the Calico Basin, there would be you could not have a reservation for 9 a.m. in Calico Basin and 9 a.m. for the scenic drive. You would have to have a separate reservation. So the reservation system would be managed differently. But with that said, standard amenity fees would be covered for both locations. So you would, and that's per day. So you would pay either one entry fee or one standard amenity fee into the scenic drive. That covers your fee into Calico Basin. But there would be a required reservation for each of those locations that you would have to make separately. Yeah, I'm just waiting for John to pull out the next question.
So we have a question about the operating hours. The question is, Please explain the operating hours under this plan for Calico Basin and the fines for being in the area after hours.
The day use hours will be the same as the scenic drive. So for March and sorry, I'm collecting our hours together so in the summer hours, we're open till 8 p.m. In the spring and fall, our hours, there's 2 months. There's October and April where we're open till 7 p.m. And then in the winter, we're open till 5 p.m. Those hours are going to be consistent in Calico Basin. And we're gonna manage it in the same way that we manage the scenic drive with the same day use hour. And just to clarify, it's November through February, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. March is 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. April through September is 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. and October is 6 a.m. to 7 p.m.
The next question we have is, what data was used to determine that mountain biking is not appropriate?
Well, the data used, we're continuing a decision that was what was made back at the development of our resource management plan. And I can, that's a question that I'm going to ask, if you want more details on that, I'll have to have you either come to our office or call us and we can give you more specifics. But specific to this plan, we're managing for resource protection and the trails that, if you look at the map and you look at the trails that are designated in the Calico Basin area, those trails, we cannot manage 1 million people in the Calico Basin area on the small number of trails within that area. And more specifically, there was a resource in our resource management plan. There is a record of decision found in section 4D2.2, and that decision. And if you want to look that decision up, all of the data is found in there. Yeah, thank you. Great question.
The next question is, would it not be more appropriate to start with an adaptive management plan for Calico Basin rather than such a drastic change, such as gate, fees, and hours of operation?
Well, adaptive management will apply to that. So the resource impacts that are occurring in Calico Basin are substantial, and the visitation just continues to grow year after year. As I mentioned, it's 20 to 25% year after year, and we can't continue to sustain that. And when we're looking at managing 1 million people in Calico Basin, we can't get people out safely, and we can't respond to emergencies safely. And so we have to implement a system that allows us to not only collect fees, but also as a priority that we've identified in this plan, to manage for the safety of all the visitors that go to Calico Basin. And when managing for the safety, we have to ensure that emergency responding vehicles and personnel can get in there and respond to a situation safely. We also know through our capacity study that we did completed in 2018, that capacity study suggests adverse impacts to the recreational experience to visitors, and we are committed to ensuring that we're responding appropriately to ensure that we're managing for a highly sought after visitor experience.
Next question is
William Scott. Go ahead, William.
Interrupt. It looks like we had another couple phone callers come on. And I just wanted to remind those who are on the phone, if you press *9, you can raise your hand. And for just the phone callers, we will allow them to go ahead and provide verbal questions. So if the phone callers are interested, again, it's *9, and then you can go ahead and provide a verbal question. All the other attendees can use the Zoom QA function at the bottom of their screen. We've got about 25 minutes left in the question and answer period.
Thank you, William. We have a two-part question. The first part is, what can we do to ensure we retain access to Calico Basin after work, which is not in line with the proposed access hour plans? The second part of that question is, what can we do to ensure access to nature remains free?
Well, it's similar to the scenic drive. I mean, access is available. We're not stopping access. What we're implementing within Calico Basin is the same as what we've implemented on the scenic drive, and that's where we collect fees and visitors can enter. With the timed and reservation system, it allows the BLM to have a control mechanism of how many people come in in a very small window of time. As an example, prior to the reservation system on the scenic drive, our window of visitation happened where our peak visitation started at 10 a.m. and stopped at 2 p.m. And that's where over the course of a day, the majority of 5,000 to 6,000 people came to Red Rock Canyon and visited the scenic drive within that window. With the reservation system, that's allowed us to expand that window, where now we're able to spread 5,000 to 6,000 visitors from around 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And on the windows after 5 p.m. and the window of 6 a.m. to 8 a.m., there are no reservations. And so really it's unlimited use for entry into Red Rock with the showing of a pass or paying your amenity fees.
Next question. Someone asked, can you please?
Sorry, John, was there a second part to that I didn't answer?
I guess the second part to that would be, what can we do to ensure access to nature remains free?
Well, I mean, Red Rock Canyon is 201,000 acres, and we stretch from the most northern areas of West Las Vegas to all the way down to South Las Vegas, and there's a lot of the conservation area to see. For areas that are, where we're charging a fee, it costs money to allow for the opportunities and for where we have high use periods or high use locations, and where we're able to support by providing restrooms and providing the amenities, the parking, the amenities that allow and support the recreation to happen. And for us to provide those amenities, we have to be able to maintain them. We also have to have staff to manage the areas to ensure your safety and to ensure that we're addressing safety hazards or any hazards that exist out there, that we're able to respond to emergencies. There's a lot of factors that go into that, and then we want to ensure that we're supporting recreation so that there's restrooms, because without restrooms come big problems, and without the right facilities to help us in managing recreation, there's a cost to that, and so we can help reduce the cost to that by going to all of our outdoor spaces and really using all of them. There's a lot of things you can do to keep it free, and we're managing Red Rock Canyon for areas that are fee free. But in our high use areas, we are bringing fees in to help support the demand for the areas that require or that are getting large volumes of people visiting the conservation area.
Hey, Josh, before you jump to another call, I want to acknowledge there is a phone caller who has raised their hand. So I'd like to go ahead and go to them. And I'm going to allow them to talk. Once I do that, they can press *6, which is unmute on their end. Then they can go ahead, provide their question. I'll mute them again, and that'll afford you an opportunity to respond. Okay, this is the caller ending in 703. So if you press *6, you should be able to unmute yourself. Welcome.
Okay, yeah, thanks for taking my call.
Thank you.
I was curious if you had first considered putting in booths to charge for parking at the parking lots instead of a toll booth or timed entry. And if you had considered it and didn't go with it, what were the reasons?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thanks for asking that. So we know that we're going to manage fees through some kind of gated system. What we don't know is the location of those booths or where that gated system is going to lay out within the Calico Basin area. And so those are all things that we're going to continue to analyze and work with our stakeholders on developing not only a design for what that's going to look like, but to support the operations that the BLM is going to do to operate that, but also one that supports the community that lives within this area, so that we can ensure that they have a way to get in and out of the homes that they live in.
Can you hear me again?
Yes.
Well, I understand supporting the communities that live there, but what about supporting low-income people or people whose public lands these are just as much a part of as the people who decided to live there? And I think we know that charging fees disproportionately hurts people of low income. You know, I'm not one of those members, but if we want people to care about the public lands, we need them to have access to it. And this is a highly popular area. And so I think restricting it past a certain hour is going to disproportionately affect certain populations. And unfortunately, it seems like it's going to come at the benefit of the people who are of a much higher income status and live in that area at the expense of everyone else. And that is kind of sad to me. I'm curious why we couldn't first try a pay to park system where the fees would come in, where the concerns you have about handling increased traffic could be mitigated through the collection of fees at the parking lots. However, restricting access wouldn't be the first measure taken.
Yeah, and that really sounds like a comment to me, and I would recommend that you leave that as a comment. But we're not putting in a system that restricts access. Again, in my explanation of how this gated system or a timed reservation system would work is we would use the system to spread the use out so that we're minimizing the impacts on the resources, but also minimizing the impacts on all the user groups trying to use the area.
Josh, real quick, I wanted to note that although we are closing in on only 15 minutes remaining in the question and answer session, I wanted to note that the BLM ID team will continue to address the questions. We've got 72 that are open right now. So even during the comment period, they'll be going ahead and working as best they can to answer those questions and then following up thereafter if they were not able to do that. So again, we're going to switch over to people being able to provide verbal comments in 15 minutes, but don't worry, the BLM will continue working to actually provide answers.
One question we have unanswered yet is, please explain how Calico Basin residents will be able to travel through the toll booth during operating hours and after operating hours. How will friends and contractors of Calico Basin residents be given access during and after hours?
Yeah, that's really a design and planning question, and we're gonna that's where we go from implementation. So right now we're establishing the direction for how we're going to manage the area. And I just want to remind folks that this is a plan that states the direction in which we're going to manage Calico Basin. Following this plan, we move to implementation, and in that implementation is where we develop plans to support some of the decisions that we make in this document. And one of those is this system for how we're going to manage fees. So we've got some engineering and design to do. We've got, which will result in us looking at the impact that it's going to have on the landscape, and then our development of an operations plan for how we're going to ensure that we're putting us in a position where we can not put pressure on State Route 159, one that can allow for people to quickly move through a booth, and one that allows the residents a way to access their homes and all of the the things that support access for homeowners.
Another question regarding entry. With regards to the potential timed entry, will there be consideration for a peak time only reservation system, essentially just on weekends when the demand is highest?
Yeah, and we're going to use the capacity study that was completed in 2018. There's a lot of data in that, but we're also going to use our adaptive management practices where when we go to implement a timed reservation system, we are going to continuously monitor what the flow of traffic in and out of Calico Basin, so that we can ensure that we're establishing numbers in the area, so that we can always maintain the maximum number of people that we can allow in the area to be in the area before we meet those thresholds of resource impacts or impacts to the recreational experience. And also addresses concern for safety. And so those are all factors that we're going to be looking at when we look at how entry will happen. And so that there's additional planning that's going to go into that. Good question.
We have a definition question. Someone is asking to please explain the main difference between a recreation area and a conservation area.
So it's the recreation area is the planning area that we're calling the Calico Basin planning area. It's the area that we've identified as the site-specific area of concentration in which this management plan covers. And the National Conservation Area is our congressional designation. So Congress designated Red Rock Canyon as a national conservation area. Many people call us a national park. Some people refer to us as an urban park, but we're not. We're a national conservation area. It falls within the National Lands Conservation System that's managed by the BLM. Other examples are national monuments, wilderness areas, wild and scenic rivers. Those are all part of that NLCS unit. A national conservation area, our priorities concentrate. Our highest priority is around resource protection, and then secondary to resource protection, we'll manage recreation.
Next question. How did the BLM establish the need for a ramp in the first place? When the BLM told the reservation done, it paid $100,000 to an NGO to determine overcrowding, implying its incompetence to establish this internally. What has changed to make the BLM? I'm sorry, we can't read this question out loud.
Yeah, well, I'll address the need for a recreation area management plan, which I did cover in my presentation. So in area, so Calico Basin, tremendous amount of growth in recreation. a lot of pressure is being put on the Calico Basin area. Resource impacts are happening at a high degree, and impacts to the recreational experience is also occurring in the area, and we have to manage that. And our resource management plan only gives us very high level direction for how we're going to manage the NCA as a whole. This gives us the ability to look at the Calico Basin specifically and identify management direction for this area outside of what the resource management plan provides us. And we're going through the questions. We're picking out questions that we haven't responded to yet, and just so we'll just spare a minute here.
Question about trail access. Why is it that the existing trails on the eastern edge that are in the BLM trail inventory for the area are now off limits to mountain bikers? The bikers are the ones who built and maintain those trails and have been the primary users of those trails for years.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. So the BLM has designated trails in the Calico Basin area, and the question kind of answers itself. Trail users built trails without working with the BLM, and we have a process for doing that. We have no idea if those trails on the eastern boundary of this planning area, if they've gone through sensitive resources. And we have a large amount of sensitive resources in the Calico Basin area, and to develop trails in Calico Basin or anywhere in the National Conservation Area, there's a process you have to work through. And the BLM does consider trail networks, but the way that we go about doing that is we work with organizations like the Southern Nevada Mountain Biking Association or the Southern Nevada Climbing Coalition or other organizations that we work very closely with, and we'll go through a planning process where we look at the possibility for trails. We go through a plan, an analysis period where we look at what are the impacts to cultural and natural resources, and we do everything we can do to minimize those impacts, and especially avoid impacts to sensitive species or sensitive areas. And we move through a public process in trail development. None of those trails went through that process, and those are trails that we haven't considered. So there's a process for doing that.
Josh, real quick, just wanted to remind you that we've got about 7 minutes left before we shift over to the comment period.
Thanks, William. I really appreciate all of the participation that we're getting in tonight's meeting. Thank you. And I'm just, John's sorting through questions right now.
Next question. Are there plans to close off the area to equestrian use? Horses are far more damaging to the landscape than mountain bike.
No, Calico Basin has a long history of equestrian use, and it is a recreation opportunity that we are continuing to manage in that area. Thank you.
Have you considered the large number of people accessing the park was largely due to completion of Red Springs Boardwalk? This has led so many people to the area and has unfortunately encouraged people to trample over the wetlands.
Yeah, we're part of our management. We are establishing management direction, and as we continue to, when we go to implementation and develop operation plans, we're going to be looking at the impacts to the meadow. It's an incredibly sensitive area, and we want to ensure that meadow stays there. And for us to do that, we're tying resources there. It's an area of concentration for our monitoring, and an area that we certainly want to protect, because that really adds to the value of the high quality of the recreation planning area.
A question again about access. How will the BLM ensure the private property owners do not get special access to the area when it's closed to the public?
Sorry, John, will you read that one more time?
How will the BLM ensure the private property owners do not get special access to the area when it's closed to the public?
Yeah, well, the community, when the area is closed, it's closed, and the community lives within there, and the BLM is not going to manage what the community does within the private parts of the private lands of the area. We're going to manage. The BLM will manage the planning area, the Calico Basin area, no different for the residents than we are for the general public that don't live in the area. Management will be consistent.
We've had several questions about the hours of use, particularly about hours of use during the summertime, about working professionals who don't have time to get to the Calico Basin area until after work, which puts them arriving there after the hours of operation. And also have we considered those late night users, and especially during the summertime when temperatures preclude day use of the area?
Yeah, so the developed recreation areas that they're gonna, the latest hour that we're gonna close is 8 p.m. and that's where we have the most amount of light available. And just like the scenic drive, we're gonna manage Calico Basin to close at those times at 8 p.m. And it's hours that are consistent with the scenic drive. And if you're not able to come after or before 8 p.m., there's always the morning hours where the gates will be open at 6 a.m. So there's a large window of time during those where we have more light available to us.
Somebody asked, can you explain the type of monitoring we are going to do in Calico?
We're going to monitor every management direction that we make in this recreation area management plan. And that's to ensure that we're meeting the goals and the objectives that we've established for this area. In addition, we're going to ensure that we have resource specialists. They're going to continue to look at the natural resources and the cultural resources that are within this area, and ensure that we're able to manage so that they thrive in the way that they thrive, but also so that they're there not only for us to enjoy today, but for future generations, for those who have not yet come to Red Rock.
Josh, you got room for just about one more short question.
Right.
Short question. A $20 fee for Calico seems too high and will definitely cut off access to less affluent residents of Southern Nevada. How will the BLM remedy this?
Yeah, the fee to get into Calico Basin, it's consistent with it's what was stated in our business plan, and it's the entry fee for getting into these fee areas within Red Rock. So when you pay $20 to get into Calico Basin, that also gives you access into the scenic drive. The part that you're going to have to manage and plan for is the reservation piece, where you'll have to ensure you prepare for the timing in which you're going to enter both of those areas. But the fee is giving you access to both Calico Basin and the scenic drive.
Perfect choice for length of questions. We're going to go ahead and transition now over to the comment period, but I just did want to note and repeat that the BLM ID team will be working to answer your questions in the background throughout the comment period for the next hour when we're able to provide verbal comments. And also we'll be following up with folks just in case there are some questions that remain unanswered. So with that, can we go to the next slide, Teresa?
Yep, thanks, everyone.
Excellent. So this is just a little bit of a discussion around substantive comments, and those are the comments that are the most useful to the BLM as are coming in and can inform the ramp EA. Substantive comments are most useful when they provide new information about the proposed action, an alternative, or the analysis. For example, if someone brought to light a new study that demonstrated there was effectiveness in limiting trail use, you could also identify a different way to meet the need of the project. There could be alternative funding mechanisms. There could be also alternative methodologies for how the ramp EA analysis happens and the reasons why those alternative methodologies should be used. And then further, another critical one is really identifying sources of credible research or data. So go ahead, Teresa, next slide. Excellent. So this is some housekeeping about how we're going to go ahead and provide verbal comments. The comments, we're going to be starting in the order of people who pre-registered and indicated they would like to provide a comment. I'm going to go ahead and call out people's names. I'm going to ask you to use the raise hand feature for those who are participating via Zoom. It'll be at the bottom of your screen. For those who are going to be on the phone, it will actually be *9. And then I will go ahead and open your microphone. A timer is going to be displayed on the screen, which you'll see in a moment. It'll show the time remaining for your comment. And then once you're done, your verbal comments will be included in the project record. So let's go to the most critical slide right now. This is the one where we're going to sit for basically the next hour. So the BLM really wants to hear from all members of the public. And one of the reasons why we're putting a 2-minute limit is because we want to respect everyone's participation and input. And we want to try and allow for verbal comments from the maximum number of folks who are participating tonight. With that, we're going to use the following guidelines. Please stay within your time. That's so everyone can speak. If you can, be respectful of others, particularly because they also, just as much as you, want to go ahead and provide a verbal comment. Refrain from profanity. And if these guidelines aren't followed, we're going to mute your microphone and we'll move on to the next person. So again, you can see the raised hand feature is at the bottom of your Zoom screen. And I wanted to note before we start, if you do not get to speak, or if you just want to go ahead and provide comments in a written form, you can visit the RAMP website for more information, virtualpublicmeeting.com, Calico Basin-ramp. And you can go ahead and find out more information about how to provide comments outside of this meeting. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Aaron McDermott to raise their hand. All right, Aaron, I'm going to allow you to talk and then you can unmute yourself.
Perfect. Thanks, William. Can you hear me okay?
I can. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. Good evening. My name is Erin McDermott. I'm the Executive Director for Friends of Red Rock Canyon. I'd like to extend a huge thank you to BLM and EMPSI for this planning work, but also for hosting this meeting this evening. Friends of Red Rock Canyon is a 37-year-old nonprofit organization with the mission of preservation, conservation, and enrichment of Red Rock Canyon. We're the oldest organization to partner with the BLM in the country, and our organization co-manages the volunteer program at Red Rock. In addition, we have over 400 dues-paying members. A primary concern for Friends regarding the draft of this ramp for Calico Basin is the lack of priority for the cultural resources in Brownstone Canyon, which is in the northern part of the project area. Brownstone is mentioned a number of times in the plan when it comes to the wilderness, the creation of restrooms, trailheads, and parking areas, but we respectfully request that the BLM in their subplan work continue to consider the impacts of those enhancements on the precious cultural and natural resources in Brownstone Canyon. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. And I actually wanted to remind everyone that this hour is for comments alone. We're not asking people to unmute themselves so that they can provide questions. So this is for comments alone. You can go ahead and continue if you'd like, though, to ask more questions in the Q&A function. Okay, so with that, I'd like to ask Brendan Koch to go ahead and raise their hand if you're here. Excellent. I'm going to go ahead. You can unmute yourself, Brendan. Welcome.
Hello. I was just wondering, it seems like this question keeps getting deflected, how you can justify the fact that underprivileged populations will have even less access to Red Rock than they do now, considering a lot of these costs are prohibitive to them already. And if you want to continue to preserve these, you'd like to increase appreciation across the board. And why would they care about them if they don't even go, if they can't even afford to go? So that needs to be addressed with an apolitical answer. I would really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan. And I'll remind you, this is not a time where the BLM is going to be responding to you, but we appreciate your comment. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask Brian Friesen to raise his hand. Hi, Brian. I'm going to go ahead and you can unmute yourself now.
All right. Can you all hear me?
I can. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right. Again, my name's Brian Friesen. I'm a climber and a board member of the Southern Nevada Climbers Coalition. I see building a fee structure and a gate will limit access to our public lands. I believe that it's unrealistic that this will lead to better protection of resources in the area. What we should be focusing on instead of building structures and gates to keep people out is educating the public on how to be better stewards of the land. I think this is much more important than trying to restrict access. One way that this could be done is there are large social media hiking and climbing groups that are Vegas-based, and these provide huge audiences to educate the public on how to better protect our resources. A greater social media presence by the BLM with simple messaging to protect these resources could be an easy first step to better protect Calico Basin. I believe increased ranger patrol and outreach is another step the BLM should take. This is a step the BLM needs to take immediately, considering the repeated vehicle burglaries that have occurred in the Craft parking lot. An increased ranger presence could also be an opportunity for users to build a relationship with the BLM. I, for one, in the couple years I've been climbing there, have never seen a ranger on foot and been able to talk to someone face to face about the issues of that I see in Red Rock. As I understand it, the current draft of the Calico Basin ramp does not utilize the adaptive management philosophy. Building a gate in order to restrict access to the area fails to take more moderate steps, which could improve the overuse areas. As a previous caller mentioned, paid parking could be a much more moderate approach to raising money for new facilities at Calico Basin. The BLM appears to overlook some of these more simple ideas that would not limit access to the area. Thank you.
Thanks. Perfect timing, Brian. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Zach Brown if they are here, if they can go ahead and raise their hand. I searched for them in the Zoom function. I didn't see them. Could be someone on the phone. And if someone's on the phone and it's Zach, you can press *9. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next registrant, Joshua Pace. Hi, Joshua. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
All right, thank you. I'm also a climber. I've been climbing in the area for close to 20 years. And I just want to reiterate what we've heard pretty often tonight is that this plan seems a little extreme and possibly an adaptive management plan would probably be a little more appropriate, at least the way a lot of people that use the area would see it. You talk about the need to collect fees, and I understand that. But like other people have said, that potentially there's other ways of collecting those fees rather than putting up a gate and forcing people to only use the area within those specific hours of operation that you're proposing. A lot of people that get off work or want to go super early just for a hike or a run, those people will not actually be able to do that in certain times of the year. I also think that a gate and then hours of operation could potentially cause issues even exiting the place. It already gets a little crowded leaving at the end of the day. And I wonder if everyone's leaving around the same time, how that would impact it. But just overall, I feel like there could be less drastic attempts to contain the access and take care of the area rather than what's been proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Next individual, Logan Caton. I searched for their name. I did not find it. Logan, if you're here, you can raise your hand. Otherwise, we can go ahead and move on. Caitlin McMurtry. Caitlin, do you want to raise your hand? Excellent. Welcome, Caitlin. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi. As a Mojave desert biologist and ecologist, I would like to see a dynamic management plan for Calico Basin with an emphasis on education. I've long been saddened by the destruction of the topsoil and plants that in Calico, and I'm in awe at how little people know about cryptobiotic soil in the area and the importance of not trampling topsoil. That said, I'm also a climber, and I think there needs to be more involvement and education with climbers. I think hosting monthly cleanups and trail days in Calico, coordinated with the BLM and other nonprofits with climbing organizations, would be vital for the longevity of the area and also allow climbers the opportunity to learn about how to preserve an area and foster a sense of community and code of conduct among their peers because they helped preserve that area. I also want to say I'm against the hours that you guys are suggesting for the use of Calico Basin, largely because Calico bouldering is a well-known place for climbers to go boulder in the summertime at night when temperatures are cooler. You basically can't recreate outside during the day in many months of the summer here. And if the BLM enforces an 8 o'clock end time, that basically will eliminate the whole use of bouldering in the summer. I also am suggesting a educational opportunity for more access. And what I mean by that is an alternative plan for people who use the area often. Maybe they can take some sort of educational course so that they can get more frequent use or after hours use, suggesting that they know how to preserve the area, and also maybe they volunteer 4 times a year to help preserve the area, and then they can get more access. Some sort of plan that allows the preservation of all hours of use while also preserving the area. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks for keeping within the time limit. So we've got 3 more folks up before we shift over to the next group of 10. We have Stephanie Dawn, Rick Momsen, and Jem Hanks. But I'm first going to start with Stephanie. Stephanie, do you mind raising your hand? Excellent. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk, and then you can unmute yourself. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Stephanie Dawn. I too am a climber. I am going to echo some of the things that have already been said. It does seem like a lot of the decisions presented in this plan are counter to the type of feedback given by community members in the previous sessions that I've attended and listened to. I also agree that some of the comments that this plan does not seem to represent an adaptive plan. Building a gate with a fee structure is pretty permanent. Once you put this into place, it's not something that's easily changed. Also, there's a few items that are kind of unclear. I know that there is going to be a separate climbing management plan, and thank you for answering the questions that'll be within, I guess within 6 months that you'll be addressing that. But what I'm not clear about is whether the trail access is part of the ramp only, and how this might impact not only climbing, but I know there's a lot of scramblers, for example, out there that are actually probably potentially more broadly using a lot of the non, I guess, standard trails in the area. So it would be helpful to know how the trail access is going to be handled, and if that's going to be part of this ramp, and where the climbing management plan and that overlap. Lastly, regarding the timing of entry, yeah, those of us that are locals do love to continue to climb in the summer. And that 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. truly is not early enough for the summer. We're in there at 5 a.m. climbing, or we're leaving after 8 p.m. And going into the other areas like First Creek is such a long approach, it would quite frankly be dangerous to go in and go climbing and getting out before the heat really hits. So I would just encourage you all to consider some of these aspects of the use of this area by the locals and the adaptive nature of the plan, maybe being a little more incremental with it. Thank you so much. That's it.
Thank you. I just wanted to go ahead and comment really quickly for those who aren't on the list right now, and you can't see that I'm about to call you. I'm going to ask you to go ahead and lower your hand. We will get to you if you're in the list of registration, and that will be an opportunity after the pre-registered folks are actually able to provide their comments to go ahead and open it up to folks who would like to comment right now. If you open your or raise your hand, it sort of does not work well with my function of being able to see the people that I need to see that are next on the list. So if you raise your hand and you're not coming up next, I'm going to keep putting your hand back down. So with that, let's go to Rick Momsen. Rick, are you here? I searched for you and I didn't see you. Next up then, Jen Hanks. I believe I saw Jen is here. Jen, you want to raise your hand? Thank you. Jen, you can unmute yourself. Welcome.
Hi, I'm speaking today as a Simba board member, Nika High School mountain bike coach, and avid cyclist. Thank you for taking our comments. Today, I'm asking that the BLM reconsider recognizing mountain bikes as legitimate trail users within certain Calico Basin trails. The trails I am referring to are adjacent to Summerlin West in the southern part of Calico Basin and removed from the higher traffic areas of Calico Basin. These particular trails are a vital part of the Las Vegas area mountain bike trail network for a few reasons. One, their proximity to neighborhoods make them trails that can be ridden to instead of driven to. This reduces congestion on Highway 159 and at trailheads. Two, these trails also serve as vital connectors to many neighboring trail networks. This allows cyclists an option to connect to trails while avoiding busy Highway 159. Thus increasing their safety. Three, these trails are beginner-friendly trails, making them some of the most inclusive trails in all of Las Vegas. And four, due to the reasons stated above, these trails are popular riding routes for local middle and high school teams, providing them a safe place to ride close to neighborhood schools. Finally, I want to say that it's really well documented that mountain bikes have less impact on trails than equestrians and even some hikers, both of which are allowed on the trails in Calico Basin. I support all of these user groups having the opportunity to access these public lands, and the BLM focusing their resources on educating proper trail etiquette, how to respect the desert, and how to share the trail harmoniously. Thanks.
Excellent, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and allow Teresa the opportunity to put up the next 10 commenters. And in the meantime, I wanted to remind everyone that if you don't get to speak, or if for some reason you don't want to provide verbal comments, you can go ahead and you can visit the RAMP website for more information, and it'll tell you how to go ahead and provide written comments. That's virtualpublicmeeting.com, Calico Basin ramp-home. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go to, looks like the Russes are up next. First up is Dylan Russ. Dylan, will you go ahead and raise your hand if you're here? Excellent. Thank you, Dylan. Dylan, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Hello. Yeah, I just mostly want to reiterate much of what everybody else said. Easy access to Calico Basin is really what makes the park so great. It caters to like locals of all types and work hours. And I personally can't really make access to the scenic loop work for me due to the hours that are given. During the summer, it's not open long enough to take advantage of the cool temperatures, and the dawn dusk are the best times of day to just explore the desert. And the reservation system will just impede this use, especially a gate with set hours. As everybody said, the fee system is exclusionary, but it also may be needed for giving the Red Rock area the services it does need. And I would really like to consider, even to make it more inclusive, maybe adding certain amount of free passes per resident. Maybe somebody could access it once or twice a year, but barring that, a parking pass is really reasonable to solving these issues. You could limit the amount of passes that parking pass is able to spit out each day or hour. And I feel like this is really just a move to boost up the residents and improve their property values that they have really tried to push less people to access. Trying to shore up the edges of the roads with rocks so people can't park in them. It has been a problem for years, and it's just getting worse. And I don't see this really changing. If anything, it's getting worse. And it's really quite sad to see this going on. And that's really all I have to say on this.
Thanks for your input, Dylan. Next, I'm going to go ahead and look for Farzana Russ to go ahead and raise their hand. Farzana, are you here? Farzana, if you're on the phone, you can raise your hand via *9. If you want to go ahead and raise your hand later, I will get back to you. Next person up would be Chris Bahout. Chris, are you here? Able to raise your hand? Okay, next up, Gabriel Lewis. Gabriel, if you can raise your hand. Excellent, Gabriel. Go ahead, you can unmute yourself.
Hi, thanks for listening to all of us and for taking the time to put this together. My name is Gabe, I'm a local climber and I'm a climate change scientist, and I care passionately about the environment and about getting people out to enjoy and recreate, especially close by. And I think everyone on this call would agree that something has to be done in Calico. Just walking around looking at the trails, they're pretty trampled and destroyed. But I don't think that putting a gate and a paywall up is the solution. As a lot of other people have said, that just further disincentivizes lower income folks from using it. And we see a lot of that. It's not just rich white people climbing in Vegas, which is one of the nicest things. You see a lot of different shapes, sizes, colors of people recreating in Red Rock. And it's phenomenal to see that because that's pretty rare in the US. And walking around a lot of these trails, I think they're pretty horrible. I spent a bunch of years building trails in Yosemite, and nothing that I've seen in Red Rock would even come close to passing in a national park. Obviously, there's tons of funding differences, but I think the main difference is the signage in Red Rock. And I've offered to folks at the Visitor Center and SNCC and the Friends of Red Rocks, but I think so many people on this call would be happy to go out and put additional signs up at the parking lots saying, hey, please stay on trails, because a lot of people just don't know that that's the ethic, as well as some of those little plastic signs out on the trails being like, hey, this is where you should be. Please don't walk on the cryptobiotic soil because it's ruining it, especially in craft around all the bouldering areas, as well as on the long approaches in the scenic drive. And it would be great if we could have a program where climbers are able to help out with that. I'm sure tons of folks would love to improve the trails. So thank you for listening to our questions, and I hope that you do take them into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. Excellent. So the next individual, I searched for the name Maddie Adams. If you are here, please raise your hand. Maddie, we can go ahead and get back to you later. Heather Fisher. Thank you, Heather. I see you. You can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. I'm Heather Fisher, the president of Save Red Rock. We appreciate your efforts to protect the resources that is in everyone's best interest, but we also hear the concerns of users being singled out and access being limited based on outdated data. More education through signage and volunteers, and even an extended access pass for educated users that was mentioned earlier, is a great solution that we feel could be considered, and we are willing to provide resources to do that to keep the area open. We know that other groups would be willing to do this as well. We encourage ongoing, consistent conversation with all user groups, including climbers, hikers, bikers, residents, visitors, and equestrians, rather than hard decisions based on data from a time that is completely different from now. User groups who want to keep using the area can provide resource assistance through the officially recognized and responsible organizations like Save Red Rock and Southern Nevada Climbers Coalition and the Southern Nevada Mountain Bike Association and the Southern Nevada Bicycle Coalition. There's a bunch of new organized groups that weren't around in 2005, not all of them anyway, that can now offer some assistance. So this is why we encourage the adaptive management process and continual and consistent coordination with all the public user groups. That we appreciate that this meeting is doing that, and we just encourage ongoing use with that, and we respectfully request that the decisions be considered with more current data. The original ramp plan with this, I'm going down 30 seconds. The original ramp plan from 42.2 is from 2005. This does not reflect changes that have happened with the sudden population boom with COVID or the more organized user groups that are now more responsibly represented. More protection is needed, but also more use is happening and more user groups are more organized. So we believe that an adaptive management approach could be helpful, and we appreciate you initiating this conversation. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Thank you. Next up, Lacey Hendricks. Hi, Lacey. I'm going to go ahead, hit allow you to talk, and you can unmute yourself.
Thank you. My name's Lacey Hendricks, and I'm the president of the Southern Nevada Climbers Coalition. We're a 501c3 nonprofit organization that works to protect access to climbing in Southern Nevada. As the organization that advocates for local and visiting climbers here and works to mitigate their impact alongside the BLM, we would like to share some comments on the Calico Basin ramp. We are also in the process of working with the Access Fund to develop more specific comments that we will share prior to the end of the comment period. First, we'd like to suggest that instead of implementing a fee structure via a toll booth, that the BLM take a more adaptive management approach. That could include things like paid parking and parking enforcement at popular trailheads such as Craft Mountain. Paid parking and parking enforcement would help to decrease visitation to Calico Basin without limiting access. We'd also like clarification on charging fees for Craft Mountain. Section 6802, the Recreation Fee Authority of the Federal Lands Recreation Enhancement Act of 2004, places clear restrictions on when recreation and amenity fees can be charged on federal land. Among these restrictions are the need for adequate infrastructure and amenities, including a permanent toilet facility and developed parking. Currently, Craft has no amenities and none are officially planned as a part of this ramp, so we'd like to understand this further. Second, we would like to see the BLM increase the number of park rangers present in Calico Basin. If there were more rangers, they could regularly walk trails and educate visitors in order to better manage recreation in Calico Basin. We believe this would be a more moderate approach that would allow management of a heavily used area without limiting access. Finally, the SNCC is listed in the document as a partner to the BLM in these decisions. As such, we would ask that the BLM meet with us regularly regarding developments in the Calico Basin ramp, as well as give us ample time to respond to any further draft plans. We also ask that BLM works with the SNCC on climbing management of this area. And we appreciate you guys hosting this meeting tonight. Thank you.
Excellent. I appreciate everyone's efforts to stay within the 2 minutes, and people are just hitting it perfectly. So thank you. So James Vanis, James, you're up next. If you want to go ahead and raise your hand. I saw that you're here. Hi, James. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and talk.
Okay, well, thank you. I'm a wildlife tracker as a volunteer for the Department of Wildlife. And one of the things that I've noticed in the 6 years that I've been going there, sometimes at least 100 days a year, is that, yes, the law enforcement is a problem. I understand it's a it's a problem as far as monetary also, but rarely, if ever, do I see any rangers get out of there, let alone get out of the truck. And many times when I'm hiking back in areas that are pretty far away, I do notice fire pits of wood, current ones, new ones, charcoal, which obviously is going on at night without anybody knowing it. I'm also very concerned, and I think everybody else is, about dogs off of leash. This hasn't been brought up. I know it's illegal, but it's rarely ever enforced. And just with the quail, the rabbit, the tortoises, snakes, Gila monsters, dogs do chase all of those things. I've witnessed it myself, and this is something that we really need to kind of try to figure out. As far as night bouldering, I do understand that it's a very nice time when it's cooler in the weather, but we also have to consider the wildlife, much of which is nocturnal in Calico Basin, including rodents and snakes, and a lot of other bobcats, coyotes, and other things that wander through there. So all of these things are important. I do believe that there probably are a few too many people, and quite frankly, I'm tired of picking up bags with dog scat in them that people put in the bag and then leave on the trail. And I thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go ahead and go on to Weston Lipia. Weston, I see that you've already raised your hand. That helps me so much. I appreciate it. Weston, you should be able to go ahead and unmute yourself and talk.
All right, can you hear me?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Awesome. First of all, awesome comments by Lisi and the SNCC gang. Great work there. Good evening, my name's Weston Lippy, and I've lived in Nevada now for almost 21 years, and I'm an avid climber and cyclist. I've recreated in Calico Basin since the late 1990s and have seen the rapid increase in visitation in an area with about 25 residences in the area and the impacts associated there. I also have a 2-year-old son who you may be able to hear in the background that I want to be able to enjoy Calico Basin the way that I've had the opportunity to in the past. So to put this very simply, no to the gate, no to the fees, no to the reservation system. This land is our land. When has the BLM ever eased permanent restrictions like putting in a gate? So first we had the gate out on the loop road, then hours, then reservations after they'd already reduced parking. This is the equivalent of putting a stick in the spokes of your bike and blaming the road for the subsequent crash. With that being said, the plan being put forth is unacceptable and not inclusive, nor is it adaptive management. This draft is an abject failure. This is the equivalent of banning cars in New York City because the rich there can't be bothered by the traffic. This is particularly troubling because quite possibly the most famous climber in the world is a resident in the basin and has been conspicuously silent on the matter. The BLM's bungling land management of the loop road with the implementation of a reservation system has increased the load on all other areas of the NCA. The issue at hand is increasing education and law enforcement, not gating this off and federally subsidizing a gated community for the wealthy residents of Calico Basin. This approach will permit those without the financial means and also permit those who work shift work as a viable opportunity to be able to visit the area. Further, if this is implemented, if the gates and all that are implemented, this will establish a slippery slope wherein other wealthy areas surrounded by public land can institute access. Put simply, enforce the laws on the book and teach people how to appropriately use the land, not take the lazy way out and gate it. One final point, please permit mountain biking of the trails to the east.
Sorry, you reached your 2 minutes there. I'm gonna have to go ahead. We have a lot of people stacked up behind you. So I'm gonna go ahead and move on to Colin Basler. Colin, if you can raise your hand. Colin, if you're on the phone, you can go ahead and hit *9. Okay, so it looks like we're on to the next group of commenters. David Spicer, if you can go ahead and raise your hand. If you're here. Scott Bennett. Scott, are you here and you can raise your hand? Shannon Boffoli. Oh, sorry, Scott. I see you now. Scott, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah, I won't take up a lot of time. I just want to echo Jen Hank's comments. I thought she said it incredibly well. We have a lot of very interested young mountain bikers that we practice with for both middle school and high school on the east side of Calico. So I would just like to echo Jen's comments that we would like access to, not all of Calico trails, but obviously the ones that are less used, so that we can continue using those trails for mountain biking and helping the younger residents of this area, these middle schoolers and high schoolers, learn in a safe environment where they have better access. Thank you.
Thank you. So I wanted to go back to David Spicer. David, it shows that you're here on the call. If you can go ahead and raise your hand, that would be great. If you don't do it in the next 5 seconds, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to ask Shannon to go ahead and talk. She has already raised her hand. Shannon, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, my name's Shannon Bofelli. I am a nurse practitioner and an avid cyclist. And I moved from Park City, Utah to Las Vegas about 3 years ago and was recruited here to try and fill the large medical need that Las Vegas has. I moved here specifically because of the access to the desert and the trails that are located in the desert. I live in West Summerlin just so I can access the trails that are in this area. And I would just like to advocate for the inclusion of mountain biking in the Calico Basin area. I think a careful analysis of the traffic patterns in the Calico Basin area would show that mountain bikers are not specifically contributing to the increased numbers of users or automobile traffic in Calico Basin, as most of us access the trails from Summerlin and only use the trails to pass through Calico on our way out to Red Rock. I also know, as a member of the Southern Nevada Mountain Bike Association, that these trails have been submitted to the local BLM for their consideration as recognized official trails, and that the BLM has not responded to any of those requests and has not moved the process along in giving access or legitimizing any of the trails for mountain bike access. And I think that that needs to be considered in this plan. Thanks.
Thank you. So next up is Al Thresher. I searched for their name, did not hear them, but Al, if you're on the phone, you can go ahead and hit *9 to raise your hand. I also searched for Mike McLeod. Mike, I didn't see your name there, so if you can go ahead and raise your hand, that would be great. Otherwise, we're going to move on to Alexi Schatz. And Alexi, you can go ahead and raise your hand. Excellent. Alexi, I'm going to go ahead and you can unmute yourself now. Welcome.
Hello, thank you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. Yeah, I just want to reiterate some things that other people have said, which is that this is an extreme measure, and I'd like to urge you to take some precautions along the way. Do something that's less drastic. The parking, putting in parking meters is a much better way to go. We talk about increasing traffic to the area as if that's just like a terrible thing, but we don't talk about the plus sides of that. I mean, to some degree, we should be celebrating the fact that more people are getting out there. And at a time when record suicides are happening, we should not be encouraging restricting access. If we need fees to improve signage, to improve trail maintenance, to improve or to add bathrooms, we can do that. but any measures that restrict access should be off the table. Calico is an area that people congregate. Social gatherings are extremely important, and this measure will basically be irreversible. And so, you know, I urge you to consider less drastic measures, something that we can adapt along the way, as others have said. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexi. So with that, I see John Hedges. Oh, there's David. David now has his hand up. David, I appreciate you jumping back in. I'm going to go ahead and go to you next, and then we'll go to John Hedges. David, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and provide your comment. Good evening.
Thank you. I had difficulties in finding that spot. This is David Spicer, the president of Southern Nevada Mountain Biking Association. Appreciate you guys giving us an opportunity to weigh in on this and everybody that's already done that. SIMBA believes in conservation of natural resources and that all the partnerships in bettering that. We'll be approaching our suggestions and appropriate use that serves the needs of all of us users out there. Gathering data details and previous examples of how mitigations of similar issues we will seek and provide. There are many examples in the 7 western states where solutions have been found regarding the uses of public land similar to this one here. We believe that mountain biking can be an asset to the conservation area by working with you in education to the needs of it, simultaneously serving the needs of the people who are using it now. IMBA, our parent organization, has successfully implemented in almost all the states in the US comprehensive educational and quality of life improvements in so many ways. They stand committed to this chapter, us, SIMBA, working with all of us as their reputation precedes them. Together, we all can make this conservation area and the users within it have the experiences they came for by working together, getting funding for signage, working for education, educational trailheads, fencing of sensitive areas if needed, and whatever else our partnership that we would all have together would identify was needed. We really believe in partnerships and will point out how it can and will work for a better outcome for the community of Las Vegas. We all need the use of our public land. Closing it to a certain group will only distance the relationships we need together for future potential partnerships. For, as you mentioned, all the other areas down there where the trails are at, we need to have those partnerships working. This is a great opportunity for us to start one now, identifying uses of trails and how we may best implement those for the needs of the land and the community and the people. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we'll go ahead and shift over to John Hedges. John, I saw you had raised your hand, and I'm sorry we kind of pivoted away from you. Can you raise it again? Oh, thank you. John, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Hello, my name is John Hedges. I'm a local rock climber, and I've lived in the area for almost 20 years. I feel like the BLM, when they initiated the reserve time entry system with limited quotas for the Red Rock Loop Road last year, they seemed to do so on an emergency basis, thanks to the pandemic, with no public input. This shifted a lot of the traffic to other areas of Red Rock, including Calico Basin. So a lot of this increase in traffic is almost self-imposed. There also seems to be a serious lack of visible law enforcement around Red Rock, and crimes such as vehicle break-ins have accelerated unabated. And there seems to be no rangers patrolling on foot on the trails. This has led to a perception of a lawless atmosphere. There used to be climbing rangers, and those positions appear to have been eliminated. I would suggest that the BLM enforce already existing laws and put some boots on the ground. Creating a toll booth, blocking access to Calico Basin, which has always been free access for people of all means for the local community. It really is an unacceptable solution for residents and taxpayers of Southern Nevada. Creating a gated community for Calico Basin residents to enjoy. They can come and go as they please. gated community infrastructure built at taxpayer expense only serves to increase local property values. And I believe there's some serious improprietary behavior going on with this plan. 24-hour gated security. I'm just really not happy with what I'm seeing here.
Thanks, John. John, I'm going to go ahead and move on from you, and I'm going to go to Thomas Kotab. Thomas, I think I checked and you were there. There you are. I'm going to go ahead and you can unmute yourself.
Good evening. I would mirror the concerns of John Hedges and a couple of the members or presidents of the clubs before me. I would start with the document, the draft document, starting with that there is a need. How has the BLM established this need? Only by citing the increase in visitation. I understand. And as John Hedges previously said, much of this is self-imposed because the BLM greatly increased the visitation of Calico when it severely restricted access to the scenic loop. Now we see that the BLM has not learned at all from its failure, because in goal 1.4 Trails and Access Strategy 8, it wants to push out the residents who could easily access the Little Red Rock and the areas of the NCA from their homes without any trouble out again, which will only push them again to Calico and increase the overcrowding. Further, I am extremely opposed to the idea that, again, the hours should be imposed. There is no reason and no justification for any closing hours of the natural area. Like, what are we protecting there? I understand that there is some animals who are probably nocturnal and probably who want to rest, but the few hikers that are there aren't going to make a huge difference. With the rest, the BLM claims to have 18 employees shoveling paper and 4 park rangers, seasonals, shoveling dirt, building new trails. Perhaps this disparity is a cause of the problem.
Thanks, Thomas. So next up is Carrie Anderson. Carrie, I searched for your name. I didn't see you here, but feel free to go ahead and raise your hand. But it did look like Monica Liriano was here. Monica, you want to raise your hand and provide a comment? It's a little button at the bottom of your screen. It says raise hand. Excellent. That looks like a different Monica. This is Monica Liriano. I apologize. The spelling is down there on the slide. Okay. I do see you're still on here, Monica, but with that, we'll go to the last 4 folks. Next up is Nicole DeAngeli. Nicole, if you're here, you can go ahead and raise your hand. I don't see her, so I'm going to go ahead and go to Katie Goodwin next. Katie Goodwin, you want to go ahead and raise your hand? I believe you're here. Okay, Katie Goodwin, you can go ahead and raise your hand at any point and I'll get to you. Next up is Robert Jenny. Robert, if you can raise your hand, that would be great. Otherwise, I'm moving on to Corey Sapp. Corey, if you want to raise your hand. Okay, so with that, we've moved through all the pre-registered commenters. And I'm going to go ahead, and I see that everyone's anticipated what the next phase is. So I appreciate everyone else raising their hand. And now I'm going to go ahead in order. If you've already provided a comment, such as Alexi, please lower your hand because we want to go ahead and let everyone have an opportunity to go ahead and provide a comment who hasn't been able to speak. So I'm going to start with Caitlin, and then I'm just going to move down through. And if we get through everyone before in the next 11 minutes, then I'll go ahead and open it up to people who have already provided comments. So Caitlin L., you can go ahead and unmute yourself and provide a comment.
Hi, yes, I actually logged in as my partner, but my name is Ben Lawrence. I moved here especially for the climbing. I've been visiting for many years and appreciate the chance to give comments. I do strongly disagree with the gate and also the opening hours, but in the interest of providing what you've asked for, substantive comments, I'm going to address the opening hours, as so many people oppose them, especially myself, because I like to climb late, and most climbers, as you know, have headlights. So I've heard that the problem that you're trying to address is overcrowding and also raise fees. And I do not see how closing the park in any way contributes to solving either of those. Basically, if you restrict the number of people that can come in peak hours, well then off-peak hours are no problem. So keep the park open. That's my suggestion. Keep the park open off-peak. There's no overcrowding. You'd still get fees from people coming during on-peak hours, and you'd also throttle that on-peak hour attendance. The other thing is, I've heard that the hours match the scenic loop, and that's provided as an explanation for having them. But the hours matching the scenic loop, as many have stated, is a problem and not the solution. In fact, it's pushed a lot of the people away from the scenic loop to visiting Calico Basin. So please keep the park open throughout the evening for the benefit of all of the residents of Nevada, and not just for Calico Basin residents.
Thanks, Ben. I'm going to fly over and go ahead and now go to Katie O'Rourke. Katie, I'm going to go ahead, click the button, and you should be able to unmute yourself and you can provide your comment.
Hello, thank you for everyone that's already spoke and gave their comment. I just want to reiterate something that we put in the question and answer, but as a comment. In the proposed plan, there's a designated lane for residents of Calico Basin to pass through without paying a fee. I hope that we can include all Southern Nevada locals to be able to use this express lane as well, instead of requiring the gated entry, extra fees, and online reservation system. The mandate on the ramp for out-of-state and mandate the ramp for out-of-state visitors only. This will allow for tracking of how many visitors are coming in that are local and non-local. I just want to reiterate also what Ben Lawrence has said and what the Southern Nevada Climbing Coalition said. And that is all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. That was a fast comment, which means I can go on to Blake Edwards. Blake, let's see here. Blake, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and provide a comment.
Hey, yeah, I just want to comment on, it really would be horrible to see this system take place. One thing that I know for certain is that many locals like myself, every time we go out to Calico, we're leaving with a trash bag full of trash. We're educating people when they're walking off trail about crypto and things of that nature, and are huge stewards of the land and doing what, in my opinion, the BLM has truly failed to do. And it's truly just disgusting to see that this is y'all's immediate solution is just, let's gate it, let's turn Calico into a private country club, and really just screw the locals of Las Vegas over. It's a tragedy if this goes through, and it seems like everything that's happened in the past is that you guys have already made your decision, and it's very, very unfortunate because you guys are going to help ruin the land that you say you're going to protect, but have failed to do over and over again. And it's absolutely irritating. It's a shame. And that's all I got to say.
Thanks for your input, Blake. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Jorge Jordan and allow them to talk. I'll sort of remind everyone we've got about 5 minutes left. So if people want to try and be as fast as possible, that'll allow us to get the last 7 commenters in. Jorge, go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Jorge Jordan with the Southern Nevada Climbers Coalition. The proposed decisions in the ramp are not in line with the proposed adaptive management strategy. A poll of our members stated that 56% of them have never seen a ranger while recreating. 32% of them have rarely seen one, and this is with an average visitation to Calico alone of 1 to 2 times per week. Increased ranger presence, better enforcement of current regulations, proper parking enforcement, greatly improved trail signage, potentially self-pay kiosks, all seem like more appropriate first steps to pursue a proper strategy. The proposed hours of operation during the summertime, again, don't actually pursue an adaptive strategy. As stated in the ramp, summertime visitation is very significantly lower, so there's no need to restrict usage if the summertime carrying capacity is nowhere near being reached. As stated in the ramp at section 3.2 law enforcement role, the SNCC and many other groups would be made available to provide designated volunteers. That increased presence could improve visitor experience and may mitigate negative and unsafe behaviors, which this ramp states it would like to address. Moving from completely unfettered access to completely restricted access is not an appropriate first step. I'm concerned by putting such strict steps in place will lock in stone a lot of empty promises. A good historical example of this is how the Red Rock Canyon RMP promised a new Calico 3 parking area, which never came to fruition. I don't want access to Brownstone Canyon as well to be another empty promise. Thank you for providing us a chance to comment, and hope to see you in Calico Basin sometime soon.
Thanks, Jorge. I'm going to move on to Ben as swift as I can. Ben, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and you can provide your comment.
Hello, my name is Ben Lurie. I'm commenting as a Las Vegas local here in the medical community and as a climber and as a cyclist. First, quickly about cycling, I do believe that this plan overlooks cyclists. I'll echo what other people said. The cycling community does not need access to the entirety of the Calico Basin. There are areas that are too crowded, not suitable to it, and of particular environmental and cultural significance. But there are areas, particularly those on the other side of the highway and the few ones just outside of West Summerlin, that would provide better continuity of trail access if they were made open to mountain bikes. And this needs to be addressed throughout the valley, and this is just a very important place where if there is not something done to legitimize trails, you're going to have the continued proliferation of illegal trails. You're not going to have good contact with the community, and you're also going to have more people kind of doing things on their own outside of a legitimate process, which is going to lead to more damage rather than less. As a climber, I would comment that the proposed plan, as others had said in the summer, does not provide sufficient access, particularly for locals who work long hours, as I do. I also do not believe that it's the only way to raise money for the area. I think you can have some sort of entry system during the peak hours that you're trying to limit crowding while also keeping the park open during the entirety of the evening and the very early morning, rather than excluding residents during those hours. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I'm going to go over to Lisa Harrison. Lisa, I'm going to do a little bit of shenanigans here because you're using an older version of Zoom. So I'm making you a panelist just for a moment, and you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you for providing this public forum. I hope in the future that there's more opportunities for public surveys and the sharing of whatever survey data might come, as well as more input opportunities on this plan and future plans from the public and interest groups like the SNCC, Save Red Rock, and Friends of Nevada Wilderness. I urge the BLM to take a more adaptive management plan where smaller interventions are tried first before gates are put up, maybe a pay for parking system, and you can adapt up as needed rather than starting kind of with the big use of funds in buildings. I think a better use of funds would be for personnel on the ground, providing public education and the monitoring of resources. I have visited Red Rock and surrounding areas my entire life, but for the last at least 20 years of my memory, I can count on one hand the number of times that I've seen a ranger when I've been out. However, I can't count the amount of times that I've been in Red Springs and I've seen people walking in the meadow, even though there's a boardwalk. So I think a ranger presence is needed to help protect our resources. I would also like to see a proactive approach being taken to the surrounding areas that will likely see an increase in traffic, as well as an increase in traffic turning off of Calico Basin Road onto the highway. I said this in the last meeting, but again, I think there's a high need for a trash can in First Creek. I think late passes should be a consideration and reservations only for peak times and month. And last, I think it's important that this plan is inclusive and mountain bike trails should be considered in the Summerlin West area. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, we've got two more folks we're going to go ahead and get to, and then we'll have just a bit of concluding information. So Stephanie Robertson, I just allowed you to go ahead and talk. You can unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Thank you so much for having us all and letting us comment today. I know we're short on time, so I just want to make sure to say I myself also hiking in Red Rock. I also mountain bike. I've born, raised native here, never seen a ranger in Red Rock or Calico. So I definitely think that would help if somebody was out there to maybe train about the trails and maintenance and things. I also think that road biking and mountain biking in that Summerlin West side should be included in this. Dogs should be on leashes if somebody could be out there making sure that happens. I think I'm really opposed to the plan the way that it is, but if there was a way that we could pay an extended hours fee, something that could go to signage, trail maintenance, education. If the BLM utilized all of these wonderful nonprofit organizations around town, whether it be biking, Save Red Rock, all of these, really want to come together and help the community so that we can have a free and safe place, whether it be to hike, ride bikes, especially after being isolated so long from COVID. We really need to be outside with each other. It's unprecedented time, and I just hate to see this beautiful nature taken away from anybody over money. I'd rather pay more so that people can continue going. I think that ends my comments.
Thanks, Monica. Oh, excuse me, Stephanie, I apologize. I jumped to Monica S., who is the next person. Monica, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and provide your comment.
Hi, thank you. My name is Monica Savinska, and I'll try and keep this short because I know it's at the end of the meeting. I do want to reiterate a few things that other commenters have said, such as that the reservation loop that's been system that's been put in place on the loop. I am not particularly happy with it having been put in as an emergency, seemingly emergency measure, and being kept the way it is. I do believe that has caused an overflow of users in Calico Basin. So I don't believe that restricting access with a gate is a good idea. I also believe that the reservation fee system or a fee system other than for parking is going to really disadvantage lower income users. So I oppose that. I do think that some sort of parking fees imposed may be helpful because it'll encourage people to carpool. And I also agree with other commenters saying that resources, signage, more trash cans available throughout the trail systems would be very helpful, as well as more rangers. And lastly, I want to say that this reservation system that's been put in place, I've heard rumors, has somewhat of a test in terms of a pilot system that's going to be used for other BLM areas, national parks, and so forth. And in terms of Red Rocks in particular, I think if they're planning on taking away those open hours and heading in before 8 without a fee, I strongly oppose that. I've heard that that is potentially in the works, and I just wanted that to be known. And that concludes my comments. Thank you for this meeting.
Thank you, Monica. You got the final comment. And with that, Teresa, I will ask you to go to the slide you just went to. This is a little bit more information on how you can submit further comments. Say you didn't go ahead and get enough time to provide all of your comments in the 2 minutes allotted to you, or if you didn't get a chance to comment at all, you can go ahead and go get more information at the Calico Basin Ramp EA website, virtualpublicmeeting.com/Calico Basin Ramp-home. And that will give you information on how to make a comment. You can also see it here. You can email the address there. It's the project specific address for the Ramp EA, or you can go ahead and provide mail to the address there. Comments must be received by December 8th, 2021 in order to be considered in the finalization of the final Ramp EA. Comments received after that won't be included in that final Ramp EA. So with that, I'll go ahead and thank everyone for their participation and turn it back over to Josh to go ahead and see us out.
Thanks, William, and great job facilitating the commenting period. I want to thank everyone for hanging in there with us all the way till the end, and everyone who provided comments. I heard a lot of great comments, and this is the most important part of the process, is where we collect your comments and we work towards finalizing the plan. So thank you for participating. I want to ask that all of you who are still on, please help us reach out and get others to also provide comments in the ways that we're showing on the slide that shows now. And ensure that they're aware that this public commenting period is open, and this is their final chance to get comments in that's really going to drive us to producing a final plan. Thank you all, and I hope you all have a great night.